Something a friend told me last month has been sitting quietly in my chest ever since. She didn't tell it as a sad story. She told it slowly, carefully, the way you tell something that changed you, something you are still trying to fully understand. And by the time she finished, I was sitting very still. I'm Gavin, and today I want to share her story with you. Her name is Lynn. She is 32 years old, lives in a small apartment in the city, works long hours at a job she is good at but not passionate about. She is the kind of person who always seems to have everything under control, organized, capable, quietly strong. The kind of person who never asks for help, who always shows up for everyone else, who saves her own feelings for later. Always later, because there is always something more urgent to deal with first. Her grandmother, her Bang Wai, passed away last spring. She was 81 years old. She had lived a long, full life. Her passing was not unexpected. And yet, as Lynn told me, nothing about grief is ever truly expected, even when you think you are prepared. She flew home for the funeral, helped her mother with the arrangements, held everything together the way she always does, cried quietly, alone, after everyone else had gone to sleep. And then, 3 days after the funeral, while helping her mother sort through her grandmother's belongings, she found the box. It was a simple wooden box, small enough to hold in both hands, worn smooth at the corners from years of being opened and closed. Inside, letters. Dozens of them. Some written on proper letter paper in careful, elegant handwriting. Some on torn notebook pages in a faster, more urgent script. Some so old the paper had turned the color of weak tea. They were all addressed to people her grandmother had loved. Her late husband, Lynn's grandfather, who had died 20 years earlier. Her children, her siblings, old friends whose names Lynn barely recognized. And near the bottom of the box, one letter with no name on the envelope at all. Lynn's mother recognized the handwriting immediately. She said, "That one is recent. She wrote it in the last few months." Lynn held it for a long time without opening it. And then, slowly, she did. The letter was not addressed to anyone specific. It began simply, almost conversationally, as if her grandmother was sitting across a table, speaking quietly to whoever happened to be listening. I am writing this because I am old enough now to know that the things we don't say outlast us. They sit in the rooms we leave behind. They follow the people we loved and never told. I have been lucky. I have been loved. I have loved in return as well as I knew how. But there are things I never said, not because I didn't feel them, but because I thought there was time. There is always time when you are young, and then one morning you are old, and the time that seemed endless has become something small and precious and almost gone. So I am writing this down for whoever finds it, for whoever needs to hear it. Say them now. Say them badly if you must, stumbling and imperfect and uncertain. Say them in the wrong words, at the wrong time, in the wrong way. Just say them. Because the words you swallow today will be the ones that haunt you later. And the words you speak, however clumsy, however vulnerable, however frightening, are the ones that make a life feel real. I loved your grandfather every single day. I told him sometimes, not enough. I assumed he knew. He probably did. But I wish I had said it more. I wish I had said it on the ordinary days, the Tuesdays and the Wednesdays, The days when nothing special was happening and everything was just life. Those were the days that needed the words most, and those are the days I remember most clearly now.
While there is still time. Lynn told me she read the letter 3 times, sitting on the floor of her grandmother's bedroom. The third time, she was crying so hard she could barely see the words. Not because the letter was addressed to her. It wasn't. Not specifically. But because her grandmother had written something that felt like it had been waiting, patiently and perfectly, for exactly this moment. For exactly this version of Lynn, 32 years old, quietly carrying things she had never said to the people she loved most. She thought about her mother, who she hadn't told "I love you" to since she was a child. Not because she didn't feel it, but because somewhere along the way it had started to feel unnecessary, assumed, too simple a thing to say out loud when there was always so much else to talk about. She thought about a friendship that had quietly drifted apart 2 years ago, a misunderstanding that had never been resolved, an apology that had never been spoken, a silence that had grown so large it now felt impossible to cross. She thought about things she had wanted to say to people, words of gratitude, of admiration, of love, that she had stored away for the right moment, the perfect moment, the moment when it wouldn't feel awkward or vulnerable or too much. And sitting there on the floor, holding her grandmother's letter, she understood something she had always known but never truly felt. There is no perfect moment. There is only this one. And this one is already passing. She called her mother that same evening.
The conversation started normally. Practical things, funeral arrangements, what to do with the furniture. And then Ling went quiet for a moment. And then she said, "Mom, I just want to say, I love you. I don't say it enough. I know I don't. But I do. And I think Bangwai would want me to say it."
Her mother was quiet for a long time.
And then she said, "I know, Khan. I know. I love you too." It was not a dramatic moment. There was no music, no revelation, just 2 women on a phone call, separated by distance, saying 4 words that should have been said 1,000 times before, and somehow hadn't been. And Lynn told me it was one of the most important conversations of her life. Not because of what was said, but because of what was finally no longer left unsaid. She also wrote a letter to her old friend, the one she had lost to silence. She didn't send it as a message. She hand-wrote it, the way her grandmother had done, because something about putting pen to paper felt more honest, more permanent, more real. She said she was sorry. She said she missed the friendship. She said she had been too proud and too stubborn for too long, and that she hoped it wasn't too late. Her friend replied within an hour. It wasn't too late. They had coffee the following week, the first time in 2 years. They talked for 4 hours. They laughed. They cried a little. They left with that rare, warm feeling of something lost being found again. All of that from one letter, from one woman's quiet, handwritten courage. I want to ask you something now. Is there something you have been meaning to say to someone? Not something complicated, not something that requires a long explanation or a difficult conversation. Just something true. Maybe it is "I love you" to someone who assumes you feel it, but has never actually heard you say it. Maybe it is "I'm sorry" to someone you hurt without meaning to, someone you have thought about more than they know. Maybe it is "thank you" to someone whose kindness changed you, and you never told them how much. Maybe it is I miss you to someone who drifted away, and you have never been sure if reaching out would be welcome.
Whatever it is already there. You can feel it, can't you? Sitting quietly somewhere, patient, waiting.
Your grandmother knew. Lynn's grandmother knew. Every person who has lived long enough to look back, they all know the same thing. The words we swallow are heavier than the words we speak. Say it. Say it badly if you must. Say it imperfectly. Say it today, in an ordinary moment, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, when nothing special is happening. Those are the days that need the words most. And those are the days people remember. Before we get to today's vocabulary, I want to say something to those of you who are learning English. Learning a language is, in many ways, about learning to say things. And I know one of the hardest things about speaking a new language is the fear that you will say it wrong, that your words will come out imperfect, that people will notice the accent, the grammar, the hesitation. But here is what Lynn's grandmother understood, and what I want you to carry with you. Imperfect words, spoken with genuine feeling, are always more powerful than perfect words left unspoken. Your English does not need to be perfect to be meaningful. It does not need to be fluent to be true. It just needs to be yours. Honest, brave, and real. In whatever English you have, right now. That is enough. That has always been enough. Now let's look at today's key vocabulary. Word number 1. Outlast. To outlast something means to live or last longer than it, to survive beyond it. For example, the things we don't say outlast us. They stay in the world after we are gone. Word number 2. Haunt. To haunt means to appear repeatedly in someone's thoughts in a way that is difficult to escape, like a ghost that keeps returning. For example, the words you swallow today will be the ones that haunt you later. Word number 3. Vulnerable. Vulnerable means open to emotional risk, willing to show your true feelings even when it is uncomfortable or frightening. For example, speaking your true feelings requires being vulnerable even when it is frightening. Word number 4. Clumsy. Clumsy means awkward and lacking grace, not smooth or polished. For example, say the words, however clumsy or imperfect they may be. Word number 5. Revelation. A revelation is a surprising and important discovery, something that suddenly makes things clear in a new way. For example, the phone call was not a dramatic revelation. It was simply something long overdue. Word number 6. Permanent. Permanent means lasting forever, not temporary or changing. For example, she hand-wrote the letter because it felt more permanent and real than a message. Word number 7. Overdue. Overdue means past the time when something should have happened. Late, delayed longer than it should have been. For example, the conversation was not a revelation. It was simply something long overdue. We have reached the end of today's episode. And I hope, somewhere in these past 18 minutes, you thought of someone. A name, a face, a feeling you have been carrying quietly for longer than you should. I hope Lynn's story and her grandmother's words gave you something today. Not just a nice feeling that fades by lunchtime, but a real, small, actionable thing. One message, one phone call, one handwritten note, one sentence spoken out loud in an ordinary moment,
on an ordinary day.
Not because it will be easy. Not because it will be perfect. Not because you know exactly how it will be received.
But because your grandmother, whoever she is, wherever she is, would want you to.
Because the people you love deserve to hear it. And because you deserve the lightness that comes from no longer carrying it alone. While there is still time.
There is still time.
Thank you so much for being here this morning. If today's episode moved you in any way, please give it a like. Share it with someone who needs a gentle push to say something they've been holding back. And subscribe so we can keep growing together every week. I'm Gavin.
Say them. Say them now. Say them on a Tuesday.
And I will see you next week.